like to invite Gardner Dunnan from the Dalton School to come forward and say a few words.
Uncle Smiley, what a perfect name for Carmino. How lucky are we all to have been touched by his life and work. I'd like to say a few words about Carmino as my friend, my colleague, and perhaps most especially as the person who affected my daughter in an amazing way. You'll be happy to know, after Kathy's wonderful song, I am not going to sing it to you. But as a friend, Kathy reminded me of one of Carmino's extraordinary characteristics, which is any favor, no matter how small or how large, he would always ultimately say yes and deliver more than you expected. I used to say to my friend Carmino, if you were born a woman, you would have 12 children because you can never say no. As a colleague, I always enjoyed Carmino's work in Briarcliff, in Scarsdale, and then at Dalton. But I remember when he was in Scarsdale and we were talking, and I said, so how's it going? And you all know he was upbeat and cheerful. He was Uncle Smiley on every point. But this one moment he said, you know, I have 5 classes each day in 5 different elementary schools. I'm seeing 100 students every day, or each day, but each student only once a week. I'm exhausted. So I said, Carmino, are you vested? And typical of Carmino's not being that involved in money, he said, what do you mean vested? Do you mean, do I ever wear a vest? And I said, no, Carmino. I mean by vested, do you have long enough time in the New York State retirement system to collect from it? He said, I haven't got a clue. So I said, check it out and get back to me. He did, and he said, well, actually, no, I have 9 years. I need 1 more year to be vested. So I said, okay, Carmino, when that year is up, I would like you to come to Dalton as our composer in residence. We will pay you less than the Scarsdale Public Schools, but we will never ask you to teach a class. Your role will be to go from class to class, talk with the students and the teachers, and come up with original music. So he would go to one class and say, I hear you're studying American presidents. How would you like to write a play and produce it on ghosts in the White House? Or he would go to another class and say, I hear you've studied a little bit about women's rights. How would you like to write and produce a play about Seneca Falls? The students would say, Seneca what? But he, with those students, wrote those plays, and they all felt that they personally were the geniuses that made them so exciting and the production so impressive. I remember one particular moment when we had an hour-long middle school assembly planned, and we had invited a politician. Forgive me for saying it was not Donald Trump. But as sometimes happens with politicians, there was a conflict. And so our speaker for the day didn't arrive. For about half an hour, the students were really pretty good. But then they began to get rather restless. After all, they were middle school students. What do you expect? Carmino, who just happened to be there, stood up and said, okay, I see a group that sang Glorious Morning. Let's all sing that. and the entire middle school student body had either been in that play or observed it, and they all knew the songs. He went through half a dozen songs that way, and I suddenly realized he had created a culture that was unforgettable. That was a part of every person there, child and adult. I went to almost all of his productions and loved them all, but it was only when my own daughter got to participate in one of his lesser plays, I think he would admit, Down at the Zoo. And suddenly, as Rebecca's father, watching her in this production and seeing the sense of pride and confidence and comfort that she had because of what Carmino did with her, I suddenly knew in a new way how proud and happy every parent was of every student. It was amazing. And after that, when she would come home from college or from law school and invite some of her friends from her early elementary school days to come over and catch up, they would pull out the video of Down at the Zoo and watch it laughing, singing along, and being changed in a wonderful, positive way. My wife and I are reading Tom Brokaw's most recent book, A Lucky Life. Carmino had a lucky life. How lucky are we, and literally thousands of children around the world, to have been touched by this great genius who affected our lives in a positive way that will never change.